Good afternoon. Now I'm gonna read the part A Forgotten Cycle of Mexican Sculpture. The number 133 of the review Artes de México. In his 17th year, 1917. The pre-Hispanic sculptural work that so command our respect today were part of an artistic tradition that lost its vitality with the advent of the Spanish colonizers. The indigenous artists becoming simple craftsmen who for centuries produced religious statuary that, although imbued with charm and personality, lacked the creativity force to be found in pre-Columbian sculpture. The causative factors that may explain this phenomenon have their origins in the much earlier triumph of Christianity, which put an end to the sculpture tradition of the classical world. The human and emotional tenets of Christianity, with its guiding principles of humility, charity, and love, could not permit the artistic detachment so necessary for the creation of true sculpture. Manuel Tolsa, the first artist in Mexico to return to traditional sculptural principles, arrived from Spain at the end of the 18th century, bringing with him the cast of statues he was to use in introducing classical sculpture to the Mexican public. The teachings of Tolsa were not immediately able to flourish in our country, where the many problems that beset the troubled viceroyalty and then the newly independent nation contributed to the closing of the young Academy of San Carlos. The work of Tolsa, the architect and the sculptor, however, remained alive, and although perhaps not receiving the full recognition it deserved, his influence did not put an end to the excessively decorative Baroque, so splendid, bold, and dramatic, and also, by its nature, so superficial. The sculptures by Tolsa, though few in number, are the pride of Mexico City, the metropolis to which the Valencian artist came as a young man and where he lived until his death. His finest work, the equestrian statue of Carlos IV, is now known simply as El Caballito, the little horse, a title that completely ignores the presence of the unpopular rider. A wooden model of this monumental work stood in the main plaza until it was replaced in 1803 by the bronze casting, which 21 years later, when the independence had been achieved, was moved for safekeeping to the central patio of the nearby university. In 1851, it was brought to stand at the entrance to the Paseo de Bucareli, where it was, which later on was moved to the Plaza Tolsa, in front of the Mexican Art Museum. The bronze portrait was made for the burial place of Hernán Cortés was taken from the Hospital of Jesus Church sometime during the first third of the 19th century by the conquistador heirs and was sent to Italy. One must assume that a number of copies were made of the plaster La Purísima, San Carlos Museum, for the same figure in good exist in the Puebla Cathedral, and another very similar sculpture is to be found in La Profesa Church, Mexico City. Although Tolsa's altar image often appear more as architectural elements than as a formal statue, the theological virtues on the Mexican City Cathedral clock tower are sculptural pieces in their own right. These are the The Theological Virtues by Manuel Tolsaz. Hernán Cortés Ghost, also by Manuel Tolsaz. El Caballito, The Little Horse, La Purísima, the most important of Tolsaz's students, Pedro Patiño Istolinque, collaborated with his master in the designs for the altars of La Profesa, Santo Domingo, and Santa Teresa, and for the high altar of the Puebla Cathedral, where the crowning figures of Saint Peter and the angels are the independent work of Istolinque. In 1826, 10 years after Tolsaz's death, Istolinque assumed the responsibilities of the position once held by Tolsaz as director of San Carlos, and shortly thereafter he was commissioned to create the main altar of the Sacrario Metropolitano, a work strongly influenced by his master's style. Istolinque also planned a monumental work for Morelos' tomb, but only the figures America and Liberty were completed, and it is certain that the unsettled condition in Mexico greatly limited Istolinque's artistic ambition. His beautiful white clay bust relief Wamba, the god renounced the royal crown, however, is the first important 19th century sculpture. Other sculptures from this era include Santiago Sandoval and Zacarías Cora, who carved the stone statues for the Mexico City Cathedral towers, basing their work on Tolsaz's drawings. José María López Perusquía, Arce, Francisco Caravent, and Francisco Terrazas, Istolinque's favorite student, who made the statues for the high altar of the Mexico City Cathedral. A bas-relief by Istolinques. Wamba the god renounced the royal crown. The theological virtues La Paz on America, the life-size marble Two Gladiators found in the Alameda is the work of José María Labastida, an artist who, though little known today, was highly respected during his lifetime. The critic Rafael de Rafael said in his review of the Academy's first exhibition, El Universal, January 1849, the young Labastida shows in the various marble figures that are to be seen in the exhibits of this class strokes of genius. Of the brothers Jose and Primitivo Miranda, both of whom studied with the Spanish sculptor Piqué, it was Primitivo who achieved fame, first as a painter and later as a sculptor. In 1889, his statue of Ignacio Ramírez and General Leandro Valle were erected on the Paseo de la Reforma, and in 1892, his monument to Morelos in Cuautla was dedicated. With the reorganization of the Academy in the mid-19th century, neoclassic sculpture was firmly established, and in 1860, when his principal advocate died, these works were engraved on his tomb. Manuel Villar, founder and director of the new school of the illustrious arts in Mexico. Manuel Villar arrived in Mexico to teach sculpture at the Academy in 1846, the same year that the other artists were contracted to teach painting, graphics, and architecture. The excellent academic training that he received in Barcelona and Rome was that of the purist school of the day, which affirmed the imitation of classic and Renaissance forms as a means of liberating art from the impurities of the Baroque. From the time of his arrival, Villar recognized the good disposition of those of the land towards the arts, and he was surprised to see that, without instruction in drawing, they make wax figures that could not be more beautiful. But he added somewhat skeptically that he and the painter Pellegrin Clavé had doubts concerning the students' dedication, for they are very indolent. The inhabitants of the city appeared to him to be passionate of the arts but lacking in taste. They prefer a dressed-up image of saint to the more classical work, and because of their great love for color, they go as far as to paint the few marble statues they have. All this made Villar conclude that he could have to resign himself to the working in wood, as the sculpture that is uncolored and of the plaster does not interest them. In the course of few years, however, and with the full cooperation of the Academy, he was able to imbue the public with a love for true sculpture. The reinauguration of the Academy, which took place on January 6, 1847, must have been a brilliant occasion, to judge from Villar's detailed letter to his brother. But even more important was the enthusiasm shown by the students, most of them from humble families, who, in spite of the political instability of the times and the threat of an invasion from the United States, turned out in great numbers for the first day of classes. Along with his efforts to develop an appreciation of classic sculpture, Villar directed the application of his aesthetic ideals to the themes of modern Mexican and pre-Hispanic history. His statue of Tlahuicol, the handsome Tlaxcalan warrior fastened to the sacrificial stone, is one of the finest works of the era. Although infused with national sentiment, it conforms to a principle of Villar's purist training that states, "Give to the world the air and flavor of the ancient without losing the truth of the times." That is, use the natural model but eliminate its imperfections in the work of art. Other of Villar's works with Mexican themes are the Moctezuma II, La Malinche, and Iturbide proclaiming the independence, a work which evoked such extravagant praise from the critic Rafael de Rafael that he felt called upon to justify his enthusiasm. In view of its extraordinary merit and also because of its object, eminently national, provokes an interest that in vain might be sought from any other statue. Worthy of special mention among Villar's religious work is the larger-than-life-size San Carlos Borromeo, destined for the Academy's council chamber. San Carlos, the patron of the school founded by Carlos III. Here appears as symbolic of the institution's role as protector of his students. Now let's see some of Vilar's works. Manuel Vilar. La Dolorosa de Manuel Vilar, of Manuel Vilar. The Crucifix. And this is La Purísima. Iturbide, a plaster model. Moctezuma II. La Malinche. La Huícole. The Head of Cristóbal Colón. San Carlos Borromeo. The Academy's patron. Vilar's most noteworthy pupils were Juan Bellido, Martín Soriano, Felipe Sojo, Agustín Barragán, Epitacio Calvo, Felipe Valero, Tomás Pérez, Agustín Franco, Luis Paredes, Miguel Noreña, Francisco Domain, and Felipe Santillán. Most of their work remains only as a plaster models. Very few pieces ever having been cast in bronze or carved in marble. Vilar wrote shortly after his arrival, "I will adapt myself to working in wood, for I believe that marble will be impossible. The caves that were discovered not long ago are more than 20 leagues distant, and it is necessary to cross extremely high mountains that are almost without roads. The first Carrara marble statue worked in Mexico, a splendid San Luis, made as a gift for the National School of Medicine, was sculpted by Martín Soriano from a piece Vilar had his master sent from Rome. The finished sculpture was unveiled in an impressive ceremony attended by the most important Mexican of the day, and was immortalized in a souvenir booklet of poems and speech printed for the occasion. The Academy also gave a San Isidro by Juan Bellido to the School of Agronomy, and a San Pablo by Agustín Barragán to the School of Jurisprudence. These two works, which provide the students who had achieved mastery a chance to demonstrate their skill, remain in the plaster originals, for although marble was ordered to the Mexican minister in Rome, it was never purchased, as his functionary used the money to pay back salaries to his employees. Pupils of Vilar's: Martín Soriano. Trinity. The Trinity by Soriano. San Juan Bautista. Allegory of Peace. Bas relief. A bust of Tolsa's bust. Now, Felipe Sojo's works, Mercurio and Argos. The behaving of San John the Baptist. The Descent. Maximiliano, Emperor. Carlota, his wife. Manuel Vilar busts. Alexander Humboldt. Tomás Pérez. The Fisherman. Venus with a robe. Miguel Noreña, one of the youngest of Vilar's students, had the good fortune to see a number of his work cast in bronze. The statue of Vicente Guerrero in the Jardín de San Fernando, the ipsographic monument to Enrico Martinez at the foot of Cinco de Mayo Street, and the seated Don Benito Juárez in the National Palace. His Cuauhtémoc on the Paseo de la Reforma was done with the collaboration of three fellow artists, Gabriel Guerra, who made the relief, the Martyrdom of Cuauhtémoc, the Epitacio Calvo, who sculpted the leopards, and Luis Paredes, who was responsible for the decorativo trophies. Vilar's statue of Columbus was not cast in bronze until many years after the sculpture's death. The only wooden sculpture made in the Academy, A Dolorosa, was the work of Martin Soriano, who had studied with Terrazas before he became a pupil of Vilar, and thus had learned the technique of wood carving. This sculpture, exhibited in the night exhibition of the Academy, was given to the La Profesa Church in exchange for some early Mexican paintings which the Academy wanted for his gallery. The Academy's extensive collection of portrait busts includes likeness of important 19th century Mexican political, social, and intellectual figures. Although the majority of this work were executed in plaster, marble was used for the bust of Francisco Mangino, founder and first president of the Academy by Juan Bellido, Jerónimo Antonio Gil, engraver and first director of the Academy by Agustín Barragán, Manuel Tolsá by Martín Soriano, Luis G. Cuevas by Miguel Noreña, and Maximiliano and Carlota by Felipe Sojo. The last two today are considered to be among the best 19th century sculptural works. Medallion portraits were also common, and we may here mention the marble tablet for Manuel Vilar's tomb made by Felipe Sojo, and the medallions that embellish the Academy's facade, designed by the architect Cavallari, and executed by the students of the school. Six of the most mid-19th century reliefs are to be found in the classroom of the old academy. The Allegory of Peace by Martin Soriano, the Beheading of St. John, and the Descent by Felipe Sojo. The Academy Rewarding Her Students by Juan Belido, the Baptism of Our Lord by Epitacio Calvo, and Fray Bartolomé de las Casas, Converting an Aztec Family by Miguel Noreña. Miguel Noreña. Miguel Noreña. Fray Bartolomé de las Casas, Converting an Aztec Family. Satire and Love by Miguel Noreña. Don Benito Juárez. Cuauhtémoc's Monument. Cuauhtémoc's Detail. The Capture of Cuauhtémoc by Miguel Noreña. Despite Villar's fears, the student elaborated with great dedication and produced countless works, a great number of which are being restored today, although many have been lost to us forever. Fortunately, however, because the students of the graphic arts use the statues for models, we have records of such important works as the first two sculptural groups created in the Academy, a Trinity by Martin Soriano and a Piedad by Juan Belido. The best source of information about the works produced at the Academy are the catalogs of exposition of the Old Academy of San Carlos, 1815 to 1898, are criticisms in Mexico in the 19th century, and Villar's letters which are included in his biography. The catalog description of individual pieces are particularly interesting for the insight they provide into the sentimental and artistic concept of the era. For example, the Allegory of Peace. Seated on her throne, the goddess of peace receives with extreme tenderness 4 representatives of the Beaux-Arts. Her delicate arm is extended to show her pure sentiments and her desire to protect them against discord, symbolized by the viper that pursues them. The goddess places one of her feet on the reptile to subdue him. The art, secure in her protection, delivered themselves confidently to her arms. Architecture and music have begun to experience her beneficent influence. Painting, with hurried step, shows his desire to rest at the bosom of his enchanting deity. And sculpture manifests, with his violent anxiety, his fear of being destroyed by the ferocious pursuer. Each one of the representatives has the attributes which relate to his arts. The Academy rewarding her students. Seated on a simple throne, the great matron, who wears Minerva diadem, a symbol and adornment, distributes to her students the rewards they have earned. Each one of the young prize winners carries in his hand the attributes of the art to which he has dedicated himself. The first, who represent the architect, receive his crown. The others await recompense for their efforts. Among the artists who, although not members of the Academy, participated in his exhibition were the brothers Juan and Manuel Islas, whose numerous civic works include statues of Nezahualcóyotl, Vicente Guerrero, Father Hidalgo, Benito Juárez, Ignacio Altamirano, General Díaz on horseback, Nicolás San García San Vicente, and the outstanding Carrara marble sculpture group which graces the tomb of Benito Juárez, Panteón de San Fernando. Gabriel Guerra is a good representative of the severe and conventional 19th century academicism, which applied the same aesthetic rules to all subject matter. Although this discipline, in alliance with the suitable themes, produces fine works such as the Venus and Cupid, and Fisherman casting his nets, it was poorly suited to the treatment of such subject matter as Rio Bravo, who, for example, could believe this well-formed and characterless old man to be a symbol for Mexico's great frontier river. Guerra's sculpture of Carlos Pacheco is a truly impressive work in which the hero's mutilations are treated with exceptional power and directness. The crutch upon which the figure leans only adds to the overall vitality and dignity. But as it happened, with an extreme trend, a time comes when it is forced to give away. And thus in France, there arose a movement which strove to free sculpture from the rigid discipline of the academicism. Important among Mexican artists at the turn of the century were Jesus Contreras, Fidencio Nava, Arnulfo Bello, and Enrique Guerra. Their works almost always given French titles, convey to us a world that is both poetic and realistic. In the idealism of this transcendent realm, women with bare breasts and flowing hair may adorn a fountain, a monument, or even a tomb. Because it was difficult for the Mexican artists to break with the academic tradition, the new freedom could rarely be expressed in civic works, although Jesus Contreras' status of illustrious person from the Reform period were academic in style. He could at times unite the classic and modern. Peace in Guanajuato and the Monumento to Manuel Acuña in Saltillo are good examples. His best work, however, are his more personal sculptures. The softly modeled marble head El Beato Calasanz, still in the collection of artist family, has no one of the classic smoothness of traditional works, but rather the material is shaped as if it were clay. Gabriel Guerra. Fisherman casting his net. Rio Bravo. The Martyrdom of Cuauhtémoc. the bas relief. Charity. Charity detail. Epitafio Calvo. General Zaragoza. Isaac. Plumage Jaguars. Belonging to Cuauhtémoc statue. Dante Alighieri. Contreras began his studies in 1881 with Miguel Noreña. 5 years later, he exhibited his first works with them won a scholarship to study in Paris. On his return to Mexico 3 years later, he was named professor in the academy, and he established on his own initiative the Mexican Artistic Foundation. In 1900, he returned to Europe in an attempt to recover his health, but finally his right arm had to be amputated. Nevertheless, he continued to work, and one of the pieces from this era, Malgré tout, in spite of the dramatic circumstance of his creation, reveals serenity and hope rather than desperation. Contreras. Jesús Contreras. The bust of El Beato José Calasanz. The sculpture of Malgré tout. Malgré tout, detail. The sculpture of Desespoir. The sculpture Après l'orgie. Après l'orgie's detail. Amado Nervo bust. Of Arnulfo Domínguez Bello, Sepulcro of Julio Ruelas. Après la grève of Arnulfo Domínguez Bello. Enrique Guerra. Sulamita's Dream de Enrique Guerra, a beautiful sculpture. The Corporal Virtues. The Corporal Virtues. Benito Juárez. Plaster Model. The bas reliefs of Dr. Lisiaga, bas reliefs. Rebsamen, sculpture to Rebsamen. Thirst. Fidencio Nava entered the academy in 1891 and later also studied in Paris. His French works, the Sileno Fontaine, the Republique, La Petite Boudeuse, the Sylphes, the Vacances, and a Prélogie exhibited on his return to Mexico. Were received with enthusiasm by the general public, although the critics considered them simply as imitation of a fashionable and superficial foreign style. Arnulfo Domínguez Bello and Enrique Guerra, both natives of Jalapa, entered the academy in the same year that Nava left. Bello, although very much an artist of his era, could at times depart from his ideal aesthetic in order to create a more realistic work. Après la grève, rather than being the figure of a fashionable young dandy, a melancholy courtesan or a languid poet is a seated worker, an almost defeated figure who nevertheless has a certain vigor and strange. Enrique Guerra, whose civic monuments are academic in style, could on occasion unite idealism and reality in his sculpture. The drawings for the corporal virtues have the inner tension characteristic of his best works. These large statues were originally part of the facade of the Secretary of External Affairs building, but today Temperance surmounts a fountain in Chapultepec Park, and Prudence, Justice, and Strength are in a promenade in Jalapa. Outstanding among the many civic works by Guerra are the seated figure of Rebsamen in Jalapa, the standing figure of Rebsamen in the Secretary of Public Education building, the seated Dr. Lisiaga in Mexico City, the standing figure of Juárez in Ciudad Juárez, and the busts of Silvestre Moreno Cora made for the Orizaba Normal School. His numerous more personal creative works include Sulamita dan le Rêve, Prometheus, Voluptuousness, Chrysalid, Epave, Tess, Fleur Fanée, Light and Shadow, and The Kiss. The last mentioned work, with its fine balance of form and expression, discipline and feeling, is undoubtedly one of his best sculptures. There exists a truly grievous lack of information about the artists of this era. The children of many of these sculptures are still living today, and I visited their homes. I have seen their fathers' abandoned studios and held in my hand the fascinating and evocative old photograph found there. Now is the moment for our young art historians to investigate the life and times of these artists, because much that is yet clear today will be lost forever tomorrow. Some relevant sculptures: La Purísima de Manuel Tolsa, The Theological Virtues by Stolinke, you can find them at the Mexico City's Cathedral. Tlahuicol de Manuel Villar, of Manuel Villar. Tlahuicol, Manuel Villars. Manuel Villars, Moctezuma II, Manuel Villars, La Maliche, Manuel Villars, Agustín de Iturbide, proclaiming independence. Martín Sorianos, La Dolorosa. Maximilian Gust of Soho. Satire and Love of Miguel Noreña. Río Bravo de Miguel Guerras, Río Bravo. Guadalupe Virgin of Miguel Guerra. Malgré tout, Jesús Contreras work. Jesús Contreras Ost. Autoportrait. Test and Flor Fané. Tess and Flor Fané, Enrique Guerra, The Kiss, Enrique Guerra too.